Sideload, where we're finally unboxing all of Google's latest gadgets. I'm your host, Will Sattelberg. This week, I'm joined by Damien Wilde, video producer here at 9 to 5 Google and my fellow co-host of the Pixelated podcast. With Google's entire 2025 product lineup now on store shelves, we're going to dive deep into all things Pixel, including the Pixel Watch 4, the Pixel Buds 2a, and our long-term thoughts on the Pixel 10 series as a whole. And I think it's like a good time to do this because we have lived with these phones for, a month and a half now or coming up on 2 months basically. And it seems like everybody has a lot of, for such boring quote unquote upgrades, it seems like a lot of people have a lot of thoughts on the state of Pixel. And Damien, I'm excited to unpack them with you. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It feels weird to be in these surroundings, right? We talk to each other week in, week out, and it still feels like it's a strange place. Yeah, I feel like 100% I agree with you with regards to the way that the fallout from Pixel 10 launch.
Yeah.
It feels like now is the perfect time to talk about it because everything's been laid out in front of us. What do we have? Maybe 2 more big launches for the year, and they're mostly Chinese devices.
Yeah, we're kind of looking at like anything that is going to launch from here on out is kind of secretly a 2026 product, even if it's like OnePlus seems to be early this year. But it's like, okay, but that's really for next year. It's not like you might be able to buy it sooner than usual. But I'm expecting that this is kind of with Google and Apple kind of done. This is basically it as far as like smartphones go for the rest of 2025. Where do you want to start? You seem to have a lot of thoughts on the Pixel Watch 4. Do you want to start with the Pixel? and that's
I
fresh,
do.
Right? The Pixel 10 we've broken down, you and I, over other podcasts.
It feels like we've talked Pixel 10 for the entirety of my life cycle, but it's which is a long time, by the way. I think it definitely feels like with the Pixel Watch, it's and I don't know if I can kind of show that if it'll focus. So I'm currently using the Moonstone Pixel Watch for 45 millimeters. My wrist looks really fat there. It's really disappointing.
You're not used to doing this on video. This is fully.
I know,
you're used to doing other things on video, but this is for podcasting totally new.
I know, real time is very, very strange. It definitely feels like it's the culmination of a lot of things that Google have been doing over the last couple of years. Yeah. And I have to say, this is the, let me take it off my wrist real quick so I can kind of show the camera a little bit better. I think that this definitely feels like the product that we have expected from Google in the smartwatch space for such a long time. It is very much in the Pixel 10 mold, i.e. they've made incremental upgrades into areas that you want them to make them.
Right.
But at the same time, they add up to something a little bit more kind of like, it's a whole upgrade in a lot of different areas at the same time that individually sound minuscule. And from, if you look at the micro level, the small upgrades, but the macro level is that this is a fantastic smartwatch that builds upon the Pixel Watch 3, which was already a pretty decent device. I mean, I've come from the OnePlus Watch 3, so that was my favorite piece of hardware in terms of like smartwatch hardware for a long time, mostly due to the battery. I think there was a lot of other things that were cool. The fitness tracking features are still maybe a little bit better than the Pixel Watch 4. But I think, little tiny little things with this, like the Pixel 10, they just... Yeah, it's all moving in the right direction. It might be glacial pace compared to, say, Samsung, who are willing to just kind of throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. But I'm glad Google left it a little bit. I think it's like that perfect chaser to the appetizer, as it were, of the Pixel 10 series, and it allows the watch to stand on its own, because I think this might be the best product in Google's lineup this year, genuinely. There's so many little nice things about it. I mean, hey, what do you want to know about it? Like,
well,
I know you haven't been using it right now.
So I've used... I did not use the first gen Pixel Watch, but I have used the Pixel Watch 2 and 3. And so it sounds like this is a good upgrade if you have a first gen Pixel Watch, but fantastic. Sell it to me from the perspective of someone who maybe bought in on Gen 2 or Gen 3.
Okay, Gen 3 is a little bit tougher.
Okay.
But I think the biggest thing that's come out of it, and I'm sure if you get the opportunity to go read the reviews on website, I agree wholeheartedly with Ben and Abner's thoughts that the display doesn't sound like much of an upgrade.
Yeah.
But effectively what they've done is they've made this like curved plane.
Right.
And I don't know why. I've been trying to quantify this the last few days. So I've been wearing it for about 2 and a bit weeks now. So basically, with a smartphone, a flat display works perfectly, right? Everyone kind of has come to the conclusion that curved displays are not necessarily the best way to do things for a smartphone. With a smartwatch, It's almost like the opposite of that. They're like the tiny little camber in the screen that kind of goes over it. Hopefully you can kind of see that.
Right.
Basically, it allows you to kind of swipe. I don't know why. It just makes swiping easier. I don't know. I can't, like I say, I can't quantify it. It's almost as well that they've put the inner display into this curved area. So it's almost like it's more like there. I don't know how to describe it. It's that little instance when I first took it out of the box, I was like, something doesn't feel right with this. This feels very, very different, even though it looks exactly the same. And sadly, I wasn't able to spend as much time with it during the hands-on session to really get to grips with it. But that upgrade alone and the extra screen real estate I think it's about 15%, you have a really big screen on a watch for the first time, it feels like. It felt like with the Pixel Watch 3 that maybe Google held back a little bit. I don't know. That's just a hunch. But with the Pixel Watch 3 and the 45mm one, it was like, it's almost there.
Right.
There's just something missing.
Yeah,
and this feels like that missing piece. There's also some tiny little changes with regards to like the edges here, whereas the Pixel Watch 3, which sadly is, I don't know where it is, it's in a drawer somewhere. Basically, it's kind of like it has these like squared off edges at the sides.
Yeah.
This doesn't have that. So it's almost like it's more flush with your wrist. It like bleeds into your wrist a little bit more.
Interesting.
It's one of those products I definitely feel like you have to go and see it in person.
Yeah.
I'm 100% not doing it justice. I appreciate that. But with that display upgrade, you get the sense that Google's moving into this more of like, make the upgrades in the areas that technically you don't think matters, but actually do start to matter on a real world basis.
Right.
Like even little things like swiping across things, it just feels more interactive. Is it a quantum leap over the Pixel Watch 3? Obviously not.
Right.
But I think we're the kind of people, I mean, we do this, right, where we just look at macro level about everything. So it feels to me like a really big deal. I think if you come from the Pixel Watch 1, I mean, if you're still using that, congrats, because the battery life must be terrible.
It was
you must
not
be
a very
it
good.
4 times a day.
It was a very first gen Google product. I would
100%.
say. Yeah.
100%. It felt like a parts bin watch, right? It felt like something
little
like,
bit,
we kind of have this. Let's just get it out the door. And this it is crazy to think that's where they've started and where they are now with this, especially the 45mm size. I think if you come from the first or second gen, you're getting a really big upgrade. With the Pixel Watch 3, I'm less kind of sold if someone's going to be like wowed by it in the same way. I think obviously I care about technology, so I'm wowed by it. But I think, maybe that's a bridge too far for some people, especially with the cost involved.
Well, and that's probably okay, right? Like I felt pretty happy with the Watch 3 in general. And in fact, I really it wasn't until like after the announcement where I was like, this thing is really flat, is like a big flat puck on my wrist. And maybe it would feel more comfortable slightly domed. Like I had that thought of like, I can see why people who had, because I have not gone hands-on with this watch, like were like, like surprisingly more comfortable to browse, as you're saying, Damien. It's
the swipes. I don't know why. It's just the swipes. I think because Google obviously went in with this like Pebble. I think they mentioned it's like a water droplet, like water on top of like a coin or something like that. It's something weird like
very
that. I don't know
Samsung
design
principles.
Old school Samsung. Yeah, it's like a water droplet. What the hell do you mean by that? Does that mean my hand's going to get wet?
I'll never forget the S3 launch, which is forever ago. And I genuinely was in high school for it. And yet I still remember like being on like the bus, like looking at like, they keep saying this phone is nature inspired. It's like a pebble, like it's like a literal pebble. Like that's weird. It's like, what a wild smartphone time.
I don't think this feels like it's too far away from what they're trying to say. Right. I think I didn't understand it when I was told about it. I was like, it's like a what now? And then you kind of understand it a little bit more, like because of the shape of it. And I can kind of see that. I know that a lot of it's like designer speak for stuff that is like, we put a curve on it, which is, I kind of need to do that for marketing purposes, right? But it definitely feels as though there's been some thought into how you interact with wearables such as this. But at the same time, I will give Google credit for doubling down on a design choice that they made a few years ago, for them to go for the Pixel Watch 1 to this and stick with a design that is, I mean, it's not the most rugged, right?
No.
And I think that's probably one of the biggest complaints I would have about this design. But at the same time, it feels, I'm a big fan of a rounded wrist watch, if I can say it. Basically, I like that it doesn't feel necessarily like technology in the same way that, say, a blocky watch does. I think the Apple Watch is a criminal in that regard. I think it's very much like it looks like a calculator on your wrist.
It looks like those old calculator watches for sure. And it's kind of crazy that they have managed to make it as much of like a style thing as they have. Like I don't think anybody could have been more successful at that. Say what you will about the design, but they have owned it and made it into a thing. Which is surprising because I agree with you that I think the Pixel Watch and just kind of rounded watches in general looks significantly better just on the fact that it looks more like a traditional watch. And I think Google's been really smart to stick with this like design. I think like that was the best thing the original Pixel Watch had going for it, was that it looked very clean and stylish in a way that like Samsung's got its own thing going on. OnePlus is very big and in your face. I guess,
they're kind of like, I feel like OnePlus is like straddling the two, if that makes sense, which is kind of a clever play to do it, right? But I don't know.
And Google feels like they're like kind of like going as full fashion as they can. And I think the Android ecosystem is like already kind of well served by those other options if you want something big or rugged or something that looks a little bit more like a smart watch as opposed to like the Google design language, which I think blends well with like the rest of the Pixel ecosystem, but maybe not, is not the like rugged, I'm going to go hiking with this watch some people might want it to be.
I feel like they maybe will do that eventually. I'm not sure though, actually, in hindsight, because I'm thinking about it now and like, with the design, obviously a design, let me take this off again to show you what my thought process behind this. So like the two, if it focuses, basically the two halves here are kind of like this top portion, the dome portion, and then this section underneath. I feel like there's some kind of callback to the Nest Mini for some reason. Okay. I don't know. Maybe I'm really, really getting out there into the weeds. It almost feels like Google has said, we're going to have this core design principle that we're going to address on every single product that we make. Yeah. And this one feels the most like that. I mean, the rest looked almost identical from the side. You would have to get really level with your eye to see the kind of little tiny dome that's there. But I like the fact that Google is doubling down on it because, like you say, there are other brands out there who, rightly or wrongly, are going to get more. They're going to have more potential buyers out there. Could that be availability, that kind of stuff? But I do also feel like Google's making the right decision because there are so few players, in the Wear OS space now. Yeah. I think Fossil proved that maybe direct fashion, like a diesel smartwatch, if you're not going to change the hardware internally, kind of doesn't really work. And I feel like they really did slack before eventually leaving the space. And obviously, Google invested in their own Wear OS ecosystem that they kind of have to do that.
I was going to say they had to. Everybody else just kind of left.
Yeah, basically. But I do think this is going to be one of those watches that definitely, if you see this on a store shelf and you have you pair it with a Galaxy Watch, Galaxy phone or a OnePlus phone, I think it's going to be a really great companion to that, and you get the experience of. I don't know if this will happen. I do wonder if someone with a OnePlus phone will pick up a Pixel Watch and be like, "Oh, I really like this experience and the hardware. Maybe I should try a Pixel phone next." I kind of don't think that would be the case. I think one of the things I love about Android is you mix and match things. Right. But maybe Google's kind of thought process is that let's just double down on this design and maybe we can entice people for a little bit more of a classy high end look. But so far absolutely love the design being the same, but also slightly changed. It's just a case of refinements here and there, and I think none of that is more obvious when you start using it with Material 3 Expressive. I actually can't remember what your opinions were of Material 3 Expressive on Android, but this is just a perfect extension of that. It changes the game. Wear OS 6 is fantastic. It's playful. It has all of those extra touches that you kind of want from a smartwatch. You have that really big screen as well, where you get bigger news style notifications. Google Home previews are better because you have more screen real estate. There's not much I can criticize Wear OS 6 for at all. Yeah. Period.
I think Material 3 Expressive, and this is kind of a silly thing to say about an update that is going out that will be on older hardware or is on older hardware as well, but like at least on the Pixel 10 at least for sure, like is the star of the show for this upgrade cycle, in my opinion. Like, it's the thing that has kept me using the Pixel 10, I think, more than anything else. Because the camera is good, but I'm a little frustrated by the camera this generation. The design overall is like relatively unchanged, obviously. So it's what I'm already familiar with, although with G2, and that's lovely. The battery life is okay. The performance is or at least thermals are better than they were. But like the thing truly that has kept me using this phone for almost 2 months now and not switching to something like the Fold 7, something maybe a little more exciting, is the software experience. It feels so cohesive and modern and fun in a way that no other company is doing, no other like mobile smartphone company is doing right now. Like, I think Apple is like completely lost in the woods on liquid glass. I know some people have come around on that design. I am not with them. I don't think it's very good. I think Samsung's current, I think it's so interesting that like this year started with the launch of One UI 7 on the S25, and I was largely positive on One UI 7, and now I think it looks like in One UI 8 as a pair looks really dated and a little messy, and part of that is just the fact that all the Google apps on it now look completely different than
that's a good point.
Samsung's design language. You and I have talked about that in the past, but it's one of those things where it doesn't feel like, it feels like a product that has been cobbled together a little bit, and that's not even maybe necessarily Samsung's fault. It's just the main apps I'm using on this device and the overall look of the operating system are just kind of at odds with each other, and I'm curious to see how much Samsung takes away from Apple. And they're in One UI 8.5, we've seen a little bit of inklings of liquid glass-esque UI in some of the leaked images, but not as much as I had feared, for sure. So I'm curious to see where they go. But yeah, man, it's truly like M3E is like the star of the show for me here, more than any AI features, more than anything. It's like made me fully, and I've been meaning to write this for like 2 weeks, but it's maybe this will spur me to do it because I could just listen back to this and write it. But it's fully kept me on the Pixel 10, as I said, and it's like really made me like kind of re-fall in love with Pixel.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you as well, because I think last year when I had the Pixel 9 Pro XL, I was kind of flip-flopping between that and the Pixel 9 for the first 3 or 4 months when they came out. And I think the biggest problem for me was that it felt like almost Google had run out of steam with the original Material U and Android. Effectively, Android, it was like Android 12.5, right, or 12.7 or something.
Exactly.
If you put it on a point release system, it definitely felt like it was running out of time. It's like, I guess Apple kind of had to do the same thing with their version of software. Yeah. They kind of were like, we need to throw something at the wall and see if it sticks. And sadly, liquid glass is going to shatter into a million pieces because I think it's terrible. It's so bad. It's so badly implemented. Whereas I think that when you look at what they've done with Material through Expressive, it enhances already good fundamentals.
It makes me want to just like use the app, like in a way that I can't
100%.
Like explain beyond just like, I like looking at Google's newest like software design, and it makes me want to live in that ecosystem more. And it is the exact opposite of Apple, where it's like, well, this makes me want to live in this less. Like, I don't want to be here.
Well, I mean, I'm very, very hesitant to upgrade my Mac Studio for it's my editing rig and my work machine. I'm very, very hesitant to switch it to the newest version of. I don't even know what they call it anymore. Is it Tacoma? I'm not sure. Whatever they want to call it, Sahara. I don't know. The stupid naming conventions that they give their operating systems for desktop.
Tahoe.
Tahoe. Okay. I do not want to use. Isn't that a car?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that an American car?
No, okay. Absolutely.
I don't want to upgrade because I'm worried that it will just ruin the experience. I think maybe that's what Google were doing with Material through Expressive. And I think I know I alluded to it a moment ago that they've kind of gone a TikTok / incremental approach to upgrades. Yeah. maybe the tiny little things that they did in Material 3 Expressive for like the fundamental core usability changes, like the quick settings panel, that is enough to get people back on side.
Yeah.
And then everything else is just a bonus. Like every single little interaction it feels like you are using something that is alive. And maybe that has been lost a little bit with smartphones over the last few years, and Apple used to lead the way with that. So maybe Google is now in a position where everybody's going to look at them and look at Material 3 Expressive and be like, I'm sure for a fact there will be somebody at Cupertino who's looking at what Google did with Android 16 QPR1 and being like, yeah, we dropped the ball. Like I'm sure there is. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who very much like Apple people will double down. And I'm sure it would be the same if Google made a bad operating system. They would double down and say, no, we made the right choices. But it definitely feels like a company a little bit devoid of ideas. Maybe they're trying to go into the VR space too quick, i.e. they have one piece of software that runs across and having clear elements might work. But I don't know. It feels like Google is in a ridiculously strong position now, despite the fact that they've never really been in a strong position in terms of the smartphone / smartwatch, tablet, maybe smart home speaker space. Yeah, they're pretty strong in that area. But tying all this together after like 10 versions is insane to think. We're 10 versions into the hardware and we're finally getting, and I don't really like the term ecosystem, but this is the only way to describe it, right? It feels like the ecosystem is at the strongest it's possibly ever going to be. And if they can
unless they can figure out you know, laptops or like big screen devices.
True, we did take that apart a few weeks ago.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's man, I hadn't, and you know, in a lot of ways, Material 3 Expressive kind of feels like, do you remember like the early demos or like the design documents, you know, concept videos for the original Material design release in 2014? And like
in my mind, I'm remembering the website. I don't remember the videos. I remember the website.
There's a lot of like shapes and colors and like, you know, they demoed this like Google Music redesign or like music app redesign that never launched and like all of this stuff. And in a lot of ways, like I think Material 3 Expressive kind of feels like it's obviously not a one-to-one match. Like if you pulled up those design docs from 11 years ago, you're not going to be like, oh my God, this is Material 3 Expressive.
I don't know. I want to interject there. I'm pretty sure that's what Apple did with Windows Era, was it? Vista Era. They just said, let's pick up those 20. It is crazy
to me that like, you know, what Apple did was actually just do exactly what Microsoft did in 2006 and be like, the future is transparency. And it's like, okay, but like we did move past that. And also like the big problem with Vista was like a performance issue, right? That like the hardware of the time was not like ready to like run that many levels of transparent UI elements. And like that's not like the problem with the iPhone. Like it runs liquid glass fine. It's just that like to your point, like I think Google's really lucky that it does not necessarily need to make headset hardware or glasses hardware if they want to, you know, if they really do see Android XR as like a future like mainstream platform that people are like, that like millions of people are using. And I'm skeptical on the glasses headset revolution, but I'm not completely out on it. I'm just skeptical. And you know, they don't need to make the hardware though. They only really need to make the platform, and Apple kind of has to, because of how that company is built, like has to make this hardware. And so I can see why they look at this like, you know, what they're essentially betting on is the future of computing, right? They've made this very clear. And it's like, okay, well, if this is the future of computing, then the operating system on it should probably influence all of our other operating systems. And that's how you get to the decision to be like, the redesign of iOS should basically just make it look like how we made Vision OS look. But it becomes a problem when you're talking about the difference between a device that is made to exist in a real world and like have real world elements and virtual elements essentially layered on top of each other, which is where transparency shines, as opposed to like a brick you're holding in your hand where you're like, okay, well, this it just looks like I installed a Cydia skin in 2011. Like that's literally what it looks like. And I don't know, like I don't even know how Apple comes out of this, like other than I guess just iterating on it until they kind of, I guess how they did it with iOS 7 where they just iterate on it long enough that they eventually find a path that does look visually appealing and is usable for its audience. But I think they're way more off base than they were with iOS 7. I do not think this is as easy as like, you know, and we saw this in the beta period, like, you know, they kept dialing the crank back and forth over and over again of being like, is this the right level of transparency? Is this the right level of transparency? And I don't know, like it is so interesting to like pick up a Pixel 10 and feel like I'm using like a modern smartphone that is like built for 2025 and like feels fresh while also being familiar, right?
Familiar, yeah. I think that definitely is one of those things that Google probably were looking at.
Yeah, like, and Apple just doesn't have that. I think it feels stale in like a new coat of paint. Like you put a new coat of paint in a room, but left all the furniture there or something. You know what I mean? Like
it's weird. Yeah, the original paradigm hasn't changed, but you've basically changed the furniture color. It's at the same time, it's like they've changed the hardware so drastically, like visually.
Yeah.
Like the visual language of the iPhone 17 does not match the software.
No.
Whereas Google has matched the software to the
Absolutely,
hardware.
yeah.
And I hope that benefits them in the long run.
The like font color I use on my lock screen is like a yellow that matches the like yellow band of this, you know, yellow green Pixel 10. I never know.
Green. I would say the piss green.
It's not really yellow or green. I find it interesting. It is like that Nike green. It's like that like athlete green. But the band is much more of like a yellowish color. And so like my lock screen has like a font, and therefore the always on display has like a font color that matches like perfectly. And you're right, feels completely in tune with the hardware. And you know, I like the iPhone 17 Pro's design overall. Like, I think it's like a nice looking, I think it's like a good evolution of what I think was like a pretty boring few years of design for them. Like I have not liked how the last few iPhones have looked. And yet, yeah, the software is like completely out of touch with what that aesthetic is going for.
Yeah, it's almost like, I think that's probably where, when we look at the big picture, where Google has really succeeded this year by not trying to, I guess that, I don't want to say chase trends, but that's the only way I can describe it. They haven't tried to chase any sort of trend or they haven't tried to preempt what Apple might do. They just said, okay,
and they're the only ones to a certain extent.
Yeah, they're the only ones who've done it. Like last year, hey, let's not make the mistakes. The Pixel 9 and Pixel 10 series, they are literally some ways carbon copies in terms of the chassis and the hardware of an iPhone. But I think that does speak to Google's confidence in what they've done since last year. And that's only going to be a good thing moving forward, right? Because they can say, okay, we don't need to worry too much about what we're going to do with hardware, because I guess logically not many people, because you don't have many markets where these are available, are going to expect too much from us in terms of the hardware. But they nail down the fundamentals, work on the main thing that sells Pixel phones, which is a software experience and all those time savers. And it just feels like they're in a really strong, it feels like they're weirdly, despite not really doing much more than they did last year, which was a huge overhaul. Yeah. They're in such a strong position. Yeah. I don't know. The dichotomy is really, really weird, right? It just feels like completely at odds with what we expected. And at the same time, it's like I went in probably with that groupthink idea of they've not made many changes. I'm going to be disappointed with it this year. And it's almost like, but do you know what I mean? Whereas this year, it definitely feels like I can fully, wholeheartedly recommend a Pixel. Like last year, I was a little bit. I think since the Pixel 8 series, it's been easier to recommend a Pixel than ever before. I think the Pixel Watch has pretty much been easy to recommend since the Pixel Watch 3. Pixel Watch 2, especially for battery life. But yeah, I think this year, I can hand on heart tell somebody, just go buy the Pixel 10. You'll have a great time. Like, you will have a great time with the software. The performance, I don't think the performance gap in real world is really not that much when I'm using it.
We can touch on this, but there's been so much. Well, okay. First, I just want to echo your point, which is that like I do agree that like Google did ape some of Apple's design with the Pixel 9, and obviously therefore the 10, because the design is unchanged. But I think they did it in a way. This might be complete cope, to be honest with you. Like this might be just like, oh, you're just like a Google fanboy, but I promise I'm not.
Yeah.
I really think they did it with like the idea in mind of like, we are fully going after Apple's consumer base, and if we make this device feel more like an iPhone in terms of like hardware in the hand, people will be more likely to jump on board because it's like something that feels like the thing they've already held. I think that's why, even down to like the decision to split like matte and glossy materials between which Apple hasn't done since the iPhone 15, but that was something they were doing. Like I really think that's like how we get here. And I think at the very least that's like a worthy like quest. Whereas like I think like, you know, when I see Samsung copy something that Apple's done, when it did something like the S25 Edge, which I think is like undoubtedly a response to iPhone, what rumors that ended up becoming the iPhone Air. Like I think like it feels more like they're just trying to like beat Apple to the punch just to say they did, but without any like specific, they just want to be able to say, well, like, sure, Apple has that thing, but so do we. And I think that's like a slightly different like approach than what Google's taking. Now, I think it also helps that they kept the camera bar, to be honest with you. I think that like was a really smart decision to be like, nope, that like much as like this may have flat sides and big curved corners, it's still like unmistakably a Pixel. And like, if anything, like we saw Apple take a page out of Google's book with how the new camera bars are designed on their phones. So like we're converging. But yeah, I don't know. Like when it comes to recommending the Pixel 10, the only conversation becomes about like performance and like benchmark numbers and all of these things that I think people are really, I saw this coming like months away, where it's like we spent 2 years hyping up what Tensor G5 was going to be. And it's so weird to be like, okay, but Google never promised you that this was like their attempt at making a Snapdragon 8 Elite chip. Like that was not, I think that's like, people are like kind of misunderstanding what Google is trying to do with this phone. And you can, I feel, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like that ship has set sail. I think Google getting Snapdragon 8 Elite or top tier Qualcomm Snapdragon performance has kind of passed. Well, and
who does that benefit really? Like who is holding out on this phone? That is it's gamers, I guess. Like that's like the real, like you can feel a hit here compared to
I think
a small audience, in my opinion, especially in the
I was
US.
Gonna say I think the gamer side of things, I can understand the complaints, and that's a fair complaint. I think from my perspective, it's definitely a case of like the on-device tasks that could be done with the improved internals. Maybe we get more bandwidth to do things like on-device processing of video. If Video Boost could get to reach a point where Video Boost is handled on-device and it's almost native, I mean, at that point, do you need Video Boost? I'm not sure, but if Google is intent on using Video Boost and the results are fantastic, it does cover up some of the shortcomings of the hardware. At the same time, do we need a Pixel with all of the highest end internals? I would be in agreement that we kind of do at some point. I just wonder if this switch is now Google just resolving some of the main complaints that we've all had with the Tensor lineup, and they're intent on doing that, and I think that's a good way to go, and not be beholden to Qualcomm and getting these off the shelf components. And effectively, I'm having the thought right now as I'm saying it. I wonder if using a Qualcomm chip in a Pixel would have brought about more direct comparisons, and the shortfalls will be highlighted even more. Right. I know that sounds ridiculous to say, but I wonder if you use the Qualcomm chip and then you don't reach the exact same level of performance as Galaxy S25, you effectively, people just, well, what's the point? Right. Whereas with the Tensor chip, the kind of people who are going to be accepting of it and are buying it want it for the experience anyway. Right. So the chip is never even in consideration when you make that purchase. I appreciate that's not fully fleshed out in terms of an opinion or anything, but I'm kind of thinking of it right now in that there are always going to be people who are just happy with their phone. I do want Google to reach a point with the Pixel lineup where it's very much like the iPhone. If they're following that playbook, which is a very safe way to do things and a sensible way to do things because they have such a small install base, no iPhone user is ever thinking, well, I won't be able to run the latest applications on my brand new $2,000 phone. That's true. So if Google can reach that point, I think I will be a lot happier, and I think a lot of potential buyers will be. But one step at a time. We've only really had, let's be completely honest, competent Pixels for 3 years. I think since the Pixel 7 was about the first one that was adequately competent in every single area since this switch to a Tensor chip. I think now there are...
I'd almost argue the 8 even, to be honest with you. I reviewed the Pixel 7 Pro positively, but it was also my first like truly big smartphone review anyway. So I was a little bit green on that. And it was a phone that didn't age particularly well. Like I think Tensor G2,
which is weird, right, for Pixels?
Yeah. Well, it was coming off what I think we can all agree was like a mess of a launch with the Pixel 6. And I think like initially, especially that fall, it was difficult to see the shortcomings, especially as far as thermal performance goes on Tensor G2. And that chip was like, that chip ran, sometimes it felt hotter than the original Tensor chip. Like it was
like supernova.
It was a problem. And like, it became like much more apparent when we got, product launches in warmer temperatures 8 months later when the Pixel 7a and the Pixel tablet and the Pixel Fold came out. And it was like, and I was getting, I remember like reviewing the Pixel Fold and going outside to lay in a hammock in our backyard. And I was out there for 4 minutes and that phone overheated to the point where it needed like a full 40 minutes on my kitchen counter to go back to being usable. It was like, it was running at like 10 FPS and was like giving me like the like, hey, your phone's too hot things. And I was like, look, I know it's a sunny like June or July day, whatever month it was, but like I've been outside for 4 minutes. Like this is a problem. Like, and it was apparent that like, maybe, the Pixel 7 series in particular had benefited from the fact that in October when I reviewed that phone, it was, and in fact, as we're recording, I got the like Google Photos, like remember this thing yesterday. So like, I can tell you the Pixel 7 launch event 3 years ago yesterday, as we're recording, but, it was like, it benefited from the fact that like it's in Buffalo in October, usually, 50 in the mid 50s Fahrenheit, it's not freezing, but it's not, pushing 80, 85 degrees, which it was in the summer. And so, yeah, man, I don't know. Like it was the Pixel 8. Sorry, that was a big tangent, but it was in my opinion, like that was the one where I was like, okay, this phone runs hot, but it's like usably hot and not like I need to put this down for an hour hot.
Yeah, it definitely is one of those things that Google needed to just get under wraps. Like with Tensor, it clearly had a thermal problem. And this year is the first time that we aren't seeing overheating in certain situations. Yeah, I'm sure
it happens. It happened to me last night where like the phone just got, or maybe 2 nights ago where the phone just randomly got like, why is this so warm? And like, why are like, but largely speaking, like they've mostly solved it, which I feel like we say like every year, but I really do mean it this year. Like the phone only overheats. I've only had the phone get warm in moments where I'm expecting it to get warm, and then like maybe two other times. True. And that's good enough. Like every smartphone to a degree does get warm under varying degrees. And so it's for the most part been like a totally fine daily driver that like I haven't ran into those hiccups on that I was worried, 3 weeks after the review process you would start to see, but it's been fine.
Yeah, it's good that Google's trying to tie up these things one by one, because I feel like if they tried to do everything at once, like I would call into question the competency of doing everything in one go, because sometimes Google has tried to do this and caused themselves lots of problems, because they are really technically a fledgling hardware company. They've only really started to do their own specific hardware since is it 2021 the Pixel 6 came out? Yeah, 2021. Yeah. So you got to iron out these things, and working with partners allows them to effectively, you can put the blame on somebody else, right? I think Google's owning up. Well, I don't know if they've ever fully owned up to certain things. They've made changes, which I guess to me screams that, we had made a mistake, be that the fingerprint scanner on the Pixel 6. They changed to the ultrasonic, which was, I think that was just a technology thing.
Yeah.
The biggest problem for me now is that they need to start making gains in terms of like putting UFS storage in all of the devices, making 256 gigs to base.
Yeah, they need to embrace the value again, in my opinion. I think the one like real negative I would throw at the Pixel 10 is that I'm like, this isn't a deal, and it will be on like Black Friday and throughout much of 2026. You'll be able to pick this up for, either on a carrier deal for split over 36 months for like nothing, or just discounted, $100 or $200 per model at checkout. But it's frustrating that, the first couple generations of this phone were like, this is a really good deal. And we've moved into this territory where I'm like, it's a good phone. You're not saving money over the competition though. And sometimes you're losing money over the competition. And unfortunately this year it happens to be that like the brand that you're losing over is like the iPhone. It's like the worst, like if you were going to pick a rival to like have obvious like budgetary shortcomings to, like Apple's not the one you want to be. I wrote like
there's nowhere to hide, right?
It's just so frustrating where I'm like, you guys like could have just like at the very least like tied it, and then like you wouldn't have had this whole like confusion over like what phone has UFS 4.0, and like you could have just had everything start at 256. I think and I wrote about this, but in the era of AI, 120 like local AI,
never enough.
128 is just not enough. You are asking people, in addition to already sacrificing space on the phone for Android, to sacrifice another. Right now, it's 7 gigabytes for Gemini Nano, and I don't. In my opinion, the AI stuff here is not good enough to sacrifice 7 gigs on a 128 gigabyte device. On a 256 or 512, or obviously anything above that, like it's a little bit easier to be like, well, okay, that's like a couple movies worth, but it's not a big splash in terms of my total storage. On this, you hit 40% on the Pixel, like out of the box, basically. Like you're between, once you have all of your like mainstay apps installed, Android and Gemini Nano, you're at like 40 gigabytes immediately, like right off the bat. And so it's like that much less space for music or podcasts or movies or whatever you want to games, whatever you want to download on this. And it's why like my favorite Pixel for the last, 2 years now, I haven't used it in a few months, but like, I think I'm still like such an A series fan because it's such a better deal that I like am a lot of times like, okay, I'm really excited about the Pixel 10. Can't wait to see what like the 10A looks like, because I think that's like largely speaking the better deal. I loved the 9A this year. I thought the 9A was fantastic for the price and still is. And it's the kind of thing where it's like you sacrifice a couple things, but man, you get like basically the core experience that you're going to get on the Pixel. I guess it was more close to the Pixel 9, obviously, but like still, like memory's the only real big sacrifice there. And I guess like the sensors, but I'm not blown away by the sensors on the standard Pixel 10 anyway. So it's like, man, that A series is still where it's at. And I wish that Google, with the A series at 500, and who knows when that eventually goes up, like then embrace that flagship status of the, like, make these devices like, sure, you're paying $800 or $1,000 or $1,200 for the Pixel 11 series, but like you feel that value in the way that you do on the A series. That's what I'm hoping, the Pixel 11 kind of brings back.
I do wonder if it's an optics thing for Google. I do wonder if they have the Pixel 10 Pro XL and it has to be the same sort of price as the iPhone 17 Pro Max, because if you go into a carrier store, and I mean, I guess not many people do that here in the UK, but I get the impression that you would go into a carrier store and you see the two devices side by side and you're like, why is this one $300 less? Like it would set alarm bells ringing in your brain. There is a perceived premium on Apple products anyway. And I think if Google wants to break into that, like you say, they need to start doing everything at the top end, be that the fastest storage, be that the best display potentially. And they do have
improvements to Tensor too. I'm not like, to be very clear, just because I don't think the GPU thing is as big of a deal as some people have made it out to be, doesn't mean that I'm like anti-improve this processor. I think that Google should be competing with the Snapdragon 8 Elite series, even if they don't maybe need to or want to. But I think like, if we're at this price, then you need to start playing ball in this sort of like class of device. Like, I don't know, like I kind of wish, and maybe they painted themselves into a corner with the A series where they have like, and we've heard rumors about reusing Tensor G4 or something, but like they've really like built this legacy of A series device for the last few releases where it's like you are getting, maybe it's a Core less or something, but basically the same processor that's in a phone that's, $300 to $500 more expensive. Like, what a great bargain. I would take a like Tensor G6 and Tensor G6 Pro. Like I would do like embrace the Apple thing of it and like put the regular G6 in the A series and give the flagships more performance. Like I don't think that's like a bad idea. I don't know how you feel about it, Damien, but I think that would kind of solve a lot of the problems that people have with Tensor at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, my thought process with regards to Tensor is that if Google can at the very least, maybe not next year, it might be a couple of years before they can potentially do this. I think with Tensor, they should always aim for the previous generation's Snapdragon Elite chip. If you can get within 20% of that, I think a lot of people will be very, very happy. I don't think it's enough for some people. There's always going to be the guys who want, and this is a problem with Android in general, and I used to be one of these people. So before, I'm not critiquing specific Android fans out there, but it's more a case of I used to want the best of everything, but sometimes the best of everything does not always equate to that experience that you want. And Google has focused on the experience first and foremost. They've mastered the experience side of things first. The hardware is easier to resolve, i.e. you can improve the chip, you can improve the processes that you're using. Somebody else can be hired to redesign your chips. If you cannot get the core fundamental experience down, you end up with, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to the Poco line of devices, but the Poco phones may have the best hardware internals possible.
How many OEMs
falls down
are
in other
out
areas,
there,
right?
That have incredible hardware, and then the problem, you read any review and you're like, wow, what a steal for these specs for $500 or $600, and then you read the review and you're like, it always comes down to like, well, the software is just bad. Software's bad, like every time.
It reminds me of the gaming it's a gaming laptop phenomenon. You have something that is ridiculously powerful, but it is hindered by certain things like battery limitations, display not being as good as calibrated like the way it should be. And I do think what Google has done is they've done they have the core fundamentals that they want for their experience down. Everything else is easy to fix.
I agree.
Yes, we can get new chips for that. We can get new software. We can get new UFS 4.0 chips. We can get UFS 5.0 chips when they're available. I know they've just been announced in the last few days. Decreased screen bezel size. Like all of these things are just things you can make these changes over time. If you cannot, like I say, master those things to begin with, you're already fighting a losing battle, because look at Samsung. Samsung kind of went through this transition of TouchWiz to One UI being a bit like visually a very big upgrade initially when the first version of One UI came out, but it still had the foibles and problems that we've all known from Samsung's devices. It's taken until One UI 7, so how long have they been in the smartphone game for? 15 years at that point, 16 years, maybe longer? To get a piece of software
if you want to count
I can wholeheartedly use.
BlackBerry clones.
Well, yeah, true. I think this is a thing that a smartphone is more than just some of its internals. And I think Pixel has always signified that in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
They've always
what
had
I was
something that's different. So
the Pixel is more than the sum of its parts. I fully
100%.
And I mean, I think that's a winning strategy, honestly. Like I do think Google's in a position to like continue to grow market share, which is not something I would have predicted, even at the start
4 or 5 years ago.
Even at the start of the Tensor era. Like I think they're like, I honestly think that like positioning it as like a Gemini phone is like not a bad bet, considering how popular we've seen. Gemini's been sitting at the top of the App Store charts on iPhone. And like, I think if Google can really leverage that in a way that doesn't piss off their Android partnerships to like make the Pixel, I'm not like a heavy Gemini user. It's just not something I spring for often. I was not a heavy assistant user, right? This was just like, I'm not like a big, voice assistant person in general, but clearly there's an appetite for it. And I think if Google can like really hit that hard with like, whatever the Pixel 11 ends up being, and I think they know that based on the advertising for the Pixel 10, I think, I'm not saying everybody's going to drop Apple, but I think it does paint them in a really good light compared to the iPhone lately. And the only saving grace that Apple has is that you can get all of those Google experiences up to and including Gemini on the platform. True. But man, if they can start to like really think about how like Gemini plays at like a core operating system level in Android and on Pixel specifically, like I do think that they could leverage it to like get some people to jump ship. I would not have said that a couple of years ago. I think it's like a really interesting spot.
I think it ties into a little bit with regards to what Apple are doing. I think my biggest problem with Android OEMs over the last few years is they always kind of look over the fence and try and snipe at Apple. But I do think I give Apple credit where it's due. They only focus on what they're doing, and rightly or wrongly, it ends up with products like Vision Pro or Liquid Glass. Google this year it feels like the first time that they've done this where they've said, we're just going to double down on what we did well last year.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic way to think about it. We're going to focus on the things that we can control and make the best product that we can. And I've just been, with every Pixel since the Pixel 6, I think it always felt like it's always been a bit of a false dawn. I love the Pixel 6. I love the Pixel 6 Pro. I didn't have as many of the issues that a lot of people out there had problems with it. But
I remember my Pixel 7 overheating more than my Pixel 6, to be honest with you. That's why I say that.
The biggest problem I had with regards to the Pixel at that point in time was it was a lot closer in terms of benchmarks to the top tier Qualcomm chips. It always felt like there was something coming around the corner that could knock it off its perch. This time around, Google it felt like they were worried about that more so than they were worried about making a good, competent product, and that probably boils it down a little bit. Simplicity, and it sounds disrespectful, but it is what it is. I think now that they're in this confidence era, it's great, because the only thing that's going to stop Apple from continuing to dominate the US market specifically and specific Western markets is Apple themselves. And I do think it only takes a few slip-ups. I mean, we saw in my lifetime, we've had Nokia selling like hotcakes. BlackBerry being available in every single device. Everybody used BBM. Like it does not take much.
No.
And I do think Apple will either succeed not betting on AI, or Google will succeed massively betting on AI. I don't know where I sit at this point in time. I just think the main thing is focus on the hardware, make the hardware good, continue making that class-leading software, and I think we're going to have a really, really good few years of Pixel hardware from Pixel 10 onwards.
Yeah, we're in that fog of war right now, right? Where it's like on AI, where it's like way too noisy and way too loud to even have any idea of where any of this is going. Like, I really think that it's not like. Yeah, I'm skeptical to a point, and I see the purpose of the tech tool. Like it's like, I don't mean to sound like I'm sitting on the fence or anything, but it's literally just like I do not think it is smart for me to take any bet on where any of this is going, because even like Sam Altman has been like, there's a bubble. Like a lot of these AI companies are not going to be around in 10 years. And like, I was alive for the .com crash, but I was like 5 or 6. So like, I don't have a lot of memories of it. I wasn't watching CNBC at the time. And I would hope not. But no, absolutely not. I was going to make a joke.
They would be SpongeBob, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was too busy watching SpongeBob and whatever else was on Nickelodeon. But I really think that it's like, it's very obvious to me that like not all of these companies can live and burn cash at this rate. And so like, I'm not going to take a big swing. I would say though, that like, I agree with you to a point, which is that Apple, this is the first time basically in my life as a technology fan, because I grew up, like as I'm growing up and becoming a teenager, like the iPod is saving that company and becoming a massive hit. Right. And I was 11 when I got my first iPod. This is the first time where this company has felt like, oh, like you were making like obvious mistakes where like somebody actually could take advantage of this. Like throughout, like obviously throughout the 2000s and then even throughout the 2010s. And I thought Apple was pretty lost in the back half of the 2010s with like some of those like late era Johnny Ive products. Like, it never felt like they were at risk of losing their audience. And I kind of feel like that now, where I have people in my life who are big Apple fans coming to me and being like, I hate iOS 26, or like, I don't feel what Apple feels about the future. Like, I don't even see what Apple's vision, no pun intended, is supposed to be here. Like, I don't understand what they're attempting to do. And I think
they've been blindsided.
Absolutely. And it is surprising to me to see Apple in this space, because like I don't think I ever would have predicted that.
I don't think they're ever going to disappear entirely.
No,
I think there's always going to be, and I think the I again, another detest this phrase, the Apple ecosystem. I think that is starting to crumble a little bit in the last few years, because effectively what you can do is there are so many workarounds now. There are so many options that exist. I think there are always going to be people, and I do find this really weird around Apple time. It seems to be like everybody goes to bat for Apple, and it's a very, very strange thing that kind of, and I mean, I'm a hypocrite because I use a lot of Apple products. I have all of their most recent major pieces of hardware. I mean, I don't
think that makes
Vision
you. They make. I think they're an interesting company. I think just because you and I work at at 9 to 5 Google doesn't mean we can't be interested by their products, and they shape so much of technology. I've always been like, it doesn't matter if I have, because I've gone through phases where it's like I have a bunch of Apple products, I have 0 Apple products, and at the moment I have at least a handful of like recent stuff from them, not top end stuff, but I have a recent iPad, have a recent iPhone, have a recent MacBook, mostly because I think it's like smart to keep an eye on what they're doing because they shape so much of tech. But this is kind of the first time where I haven't felt like, I haven't rushed to upgrade to like iOS 26 because I'm like, I have it on my iPad, but not on the iPhone I have on my desk right now, because it's like, I'm not going to get anything out of this right now anyway. Like it's not influencing anything it's going to influence things on the Android side, but nothing that I think really matters beyond the visual aesthetic, it's so odd.
I think for me, the computing side of things of Apple is holding them together a little bit more so than the phone side. I think that the M
series that the Mac is such a pillar now.
The Mac was just something that you couldn't give away a Mac when I was a teenager. It was just one of those things like, and then when the first real high-end MacBook Pros started to kind of kick around, I had one at university because the battery life was better, and I use a Mac for editing purposes, nothing else. I don't really like Mac OS. But I understand how good the hardware is for the power draw, that kind of stuff. I think Apple is a little bit lost at sea with their smartphones at the moment. It's almost like they've, we're distilling it down. They're still making good products, right? They're still a good device. They make the best iOS products.
Nobody buying an iPhone 17. Set aside the Air, which isn't, I guess, technically part of that portfolio anyway. But like the 17 or the Pros, like, I don't think anybody would be disappointed by those phones, like especially if they're already in that ecosystem. Like they're gonna, like they're not bad products; they're just stale.
That's it, and I think that's where when you have a product when you have something that gets stale, you kind of look elsewhere.
Exactly.
And I do get an inkling of that from people that
I do too,
constantly asking. And when you have good products like I said, the Pixel Watch is as good as a Wear OS watch I've ever used. And there are only really 3 big players in the space now: OnePlus, Samsung, and Google. Now, they're alongside a steamed company a little bit with Samsung, because if you want a Wear OS watch, you either get a Galaxy Watch. OnePlus Watch is not available in our regions anyway, so. And I guess Google as well is limited.
Well,
it's kind of limited certain markets to just 2 options. 2 high-end options, and that's only going to be good for them in the long run. I just hope that Google can have a plan to get into more markets, to maybe like I say, start doing things with their pricing structure to make it more appealing to the emerging markets where they maybe would be absolutely destroyed by the likes of Xiaomi and Oppo and maybe even Samsung to an even greater extent actually with their A series. It definitely feels like they don't need to change the formula too much. Just keep plugging away. And who'd have thought 10 versions in, we finally, like say, have a product that feels competent in almost every area, which is weird because of how well received the original Pixel was.
I was going to say the word of mouth on the original Pixel was like, they did it. And then with the Pixel 10, we're back to like, they did it. It's like,
they did it.
They went on a full journey back to they did it. It's fascinating. We can wrap really quickly just to touch on the Buds 2A, because we should say that neither of us have used the Fold. You did, I think, briefly in a demo, right?
Really briefly. Don't get me wrong, it felt nice, but I already have the Pixel 9 Pro Fold.
It's not a particularly interesting phone this year because it really is just like the phone from last year, but with different colors and MagSafe, or G2.
I mean, that's the same with Pixel 10, right? So maybe we're distilling it down. We've just been waxing lyrical about that.
We at least had the ability to talk through the software and the Tensor G5 of it all and all of this stuff. And it's like, okay, well, we already did all that. There's also a foldable if you want this experience on a foldable. End of thoughts. The Buds 2A I think are an interesting release for Google just because they're coming over 4 years after the first gen A series, and I don't know. I feel like we just skipped. There should have been some kind of like 2023 revision, perhaps, because I don't think the A series were perfectly infallible earbuds. I really like these. I like them a lot more than the first gen ones because I find them significantly more comfortable. They're smaller and lighter, and the wingtip is changed for the better. And yet I'm like, at $130, I'm like, man, a couple years ago, these would have, for $130, these would have been great. For $130 now, I'm like, the ANC is good, but not great. It will block out like white noise type sounds pretty easily. Air conditioners, vacuums, if you're not right over the vacuum, or like, I haven't taken them on a plane yet, but I am sure they can handle like most plane noise. But like other, they don't really block out the sound of like a television. They don't really block out the keyboard in front of me when I'm typing, in the way that like other earbuds I've tried can tamper down on a little bit more. It just makes it sound muffled. It's the pass through for me though that like really sinks this whole thing where it's like it treats every sound kind of equally. You never feel like you're not wearing earbuds. You feel like you're listening to the world through a microphone. In a way that like, again, like, there are more, I'm talking about more expensive earbuds when I say there are better options out there. But the problem is that like at $130, I'm like, you don't have to jump that much higher to start getting to those options in a way that like, if these were $100, it's not that much cheaper, but I still feel like I'd be a little more willing to be like, go grab these. They're great. Like maybe they're a great, and I do, I think there's a great like second pair of earbuds, but at $130, it's like difficult to tell somebody to go spend $130 on a spare pair of earbuds. A lot
definitely,
to like, but
definitely feels like you say, there is a lot to like. I think it's,
they sound good. Like I don't really have any complaints about the sound itself. Like I'm not an audiophile, but
I feel like with earbuds in general, you we kind of hit a point where you should just go with the ones that are obviously critically acclaimed. I think for me, it's I just can't get away from the OnePlus Buds 3 Pro. The sound is so good,
and I think those sound better.
They start about 179. They're about 179. So, and I'm pretty sure they've been regularly below 129. So, and that's pounds.
They're on sale
and
pretty
dollars.
frequently. And I think these will be too, but I feel like these will be a giveaway. I feel like the kind of device that you get given away with a device in the next few months. That's how I got my first A series. I think they just came free with my Pixel 6. Actually, I think they were like a pre-order bonus for the Pixel 6 at Best Buy, and that was where I got it. And I wish I had liked those more. And I am excited that I like these. That these fit my ears a lot better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I wish these feel like really good 2023 mid-range earbuds, and like I'm wondering if like maybe I was expecting a little bit more. I also like the buds themselves, the battery life totally fine. I have not managed to kill them while wearing them. The case, I've only had it as we're recording for a week, and I've already had to charge the case like 2 or 3 times. Like I feel like every other it's only like rated for like 20 hours on a charge, and that feels particularly low compared to other earbuds. Now it's a really small case, and I appreciate that, and like it's totally like, again, that's what makes it like I could totally see like having like a higher end pair of earbuds. But then if you're going to, I don't know, you're going out for the night and you're like, I might end up having to walk home alone or something, and having earbuds would be nice, but they're not essential. I don't know, like you know what I mean? Like these are totally the type of earbuds you can just throw in your pocket, and they're small enough that you won't care that they're on you if you don't use them. And that's not true of all premium Bluetooth earbuds at the moment. Like I have they're not I guess they're Bose's mid-range options, but I have Bose's mid-range earbuds from last year, and the case is like 3 times as big as these. Battery lasts forever though, but it's a massive case that you don't really want to put in your pocket, and this is like the opposite. They're good.
I do wonder if that was in Google's thought process, but at the same time, it's like they need to differentiate from the Pixel Buds Pro 2.
I think that's the biggest problem.
Pixel Buds 2 Pro? Pixel Buds Pro 2?
I
don't know. How do they call them?
Pro Pixel Buds Pro 2.
2 Pro or Pro 2? Well, whatever they are, I think they are pretty
Pro
solid.
2.
They are
Pro
like
2.
Yeah, they're decent. They're like a 7 out of 10 pair of Bluetooth earbuds.
I think these are also 7
and
out of 10.
They have the best transparency mode. Yeah,
well, and that was the thing, is
though?
that they're coming from like I know like I feel like they really tampered down on the transparency and the ANC here, and to get that price down $100, and you can tell, is like the problem.
I think that's probably what it is with auxiliary accessories. It's very difficult. It's a very difficult tightrope to walk, because you can't make it $50 because people say, why would I buy this trash?
Yeah.
Or £50.
True. That's true. If I see $50 earbuds, I just assume they're bad.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's very much a case of probably what should have happened was, and I know that they probably have ditched, I don't know if they have, I'm kind of trying to take this off the top of my brain if I can remember correctly. I think the original Pixel Buds Pro, which had some problems of their own, they were pretty decent but not great. They were comfy and the battery was incredible. I do wonder if those will have come down in price on the Google Store, or if they've already been taken off. If they've been taken off, then disregard what I'm saying. I think it would be interesting to see how they stack up against those. I haven't actually worn them for a few years, because when would they come out? Similar sort of era, 2021,
yeah, I think it was 2021 or 22. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the A series is one of those products that they just kind of have.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think there's much expectation on what's going to happen with them. They're kind of a giveaway gift. They're the price is a bit of a misnomer. I think that they eventually come down to like $70. You can probably pick them up on a used. Not used. You could probably go on like, I mean, I don't know how
Open
much,
box
how many
or
Americans
anything.
use. Yeah, eBay or Swapper or something like that. And someone might have maybe gifted a pair, and you can pick them up for like $45, $50 because somebody just wants rid of them.
And they're
quickly.
great. I think sub $100. This is like a great option. I think like I really like that there's, at least on Android or on Pixel, like there's no partner app. It's just in the settings, and like you can
straight away.
There's nothing taking up space in your app drawer, which drives me crazy on most third-party apps or third-party earbuds, because like I just don't want that clutter in my app drawer. I don't know, maybe I'm just overly particular, but I like that. I think there's a lot to like. It's just kind of like I can't be like everybody's got to rush out and buy these, because they're just not that kind of earbud. But like a secondary pair, or like if you can get them on sale, like a big recommend on that. Man, the other thing, no volume controls. 2025.
Yes, that did.
Come on.
I hate that. I don't know why they've artificially limited that, because they have a touchpad on it, so there's no reason why they can't do that.
And the touchpad's not very good in general. I've had issues where it's like I tap to pause and it thinks that I'm holding my finger, or vice versa, and so like it'll trigger the wrong thing. Sometimes it just doesn't feel my tap at all, and I have to do it like 2 or 3 times. That's annoying. But man, like another point for STEM-based earbuds, because they continue to prove that maybe they are the. I don't know. I think I'm team STEM when it comes to earbuds, as comfortable as these are.
I think I might be team STEM as well. Yeah. I think it just opens up the opportunity for better gestures, and also the idea of doing this. So you can kind of do it like take it out of your ear like this.
Yeah.
Imagine this is a stem. You can kind of take it out of your ear like that and put it back in.
You don't have to touch the like. Yeah, no, I fully agree.
You don't have to dig into your ear to get it out. You literally just grab the side of your ear, and in that respect, I think that is a fantastic way to have a ear product. Not digging into your ear and being uncomfortable and potentially causing issues is a sensible way to think about it. So
these are comfortable, though. I will say some of the more comfortable non-STEM earbuds I've worn. I'm surprised how small they are. They almost feel they're not quite small enough to sleep in, but they're not. I have a pair of Anker's last generation sleep buds, and these are not that much thicker out of my ear than those, which is interesting. I wonder if these would be pretty comfortable like on a plane, because that's something I run into a lot, where like whatever earbuds I have on me on a plane are not comfortable enough to like rest my head against something, and I think these maybe could be which is cool, but yeah, I don't know, they're good. I just wish they were great. I wish I could be like run out and buy these right now.
Run out and buy these, yeah. It definitely feels like they missed the mark on the price again, but I think it's an optics thing. Realistically, you should have wireless charging on a $130 pair of earbuds, and you just don't.
The volume thing is just.
I'm talking you down on the rating of these
a little bit. No, it's. I'm so frustrated, because like if you look at the thing, they're like, well, just ask Gemini to turn the volume down for you, and I just like, what world am I going to be like? Oh man, the volume in my ears is either way too low or way too high right now. I need to like take the full 10 seconds.
Ask a friend to do it.
I'm just grabbing the phone at that point, guys. Like I gotta be honest with you, I'm just grabbing the phone. Yeah. Pixel Buds, odd year for much more to talk about with Pixel this year than I think I had anticipated based on the leaks. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I feel like the Pixel Buds probably they signify in some ways the best and worst of Google at the same time.
Yeah.
And this and I mean, it feels like we've just put a black mark against what Google have done this year with the Pixel 10 series, but that does not. One mediocre product in the lineup does not take away from the fact that the other products are pretty good. And I'm very excited to see what happens with the Pixel 10 Pro Fold as well, because that probably might surprise a few people with the upgrades that they've made.
Yeah. I have to go finish my review that people can already read by the time this episode comes out. I genuinely just had Abner slide into my DMs to ask me how the review's going. Nice. So I have to go finish it.
Perfect.
Yeah, but Damien, thank you for joining me on this journey through Google's 2020 or most of Google's 2025 lineup. I think it's good to take these like big picture views once everything's done for the year, and like kind of look at where the Pixel line is in general. And yeah, like we were saying, like it's a more interesting year than you would have expected based on when it ended up coming out. And hopefully, Google keeps on this track while making some of the changes that we've requested, I think is fair.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We will have you back on because I genuinely do think that you and I can hop on a mic and talk about whatever for an hour, and just mostly need to make sure that when we do it, we're recording because that was the lesson I learned 2 weeks ago. And thank you for listening or watching wherever you may be. Another episode in the bag. I don't know who's next, frankly, because we're recording this kind of far out because both Damien and I have weddings to go to this weekend. So we had to jump on the mic a little earlier than normal, but somebody cool next week, probably, I'm sure. Until then, tell a friend about the show. Listen to Pixelated if you want more of Damien and I with Abner. I feel like Pixelated is a lot of fun lately. I've been having not that I didn't have fun in the first couple episodes, but I feel like the three of us have really got our chemistry down. Like anytime you add someone new to a podcast, there's a bit of an adjustment period. But I think you and myself and Abner have been crushing it. So go listen to Pixelated if you are not. And subscribe wherever you are listening to the show. If you're on YouTube, there's links in the description. But until then, thank you for listening. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.